Hello, everybody, and welcome to the State of Craft episode 27. Super stoked about our guest here today, Serena Donovan, who I will introduce in a little bit here. First, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Um, we have a chat section. Oh, somebody just said something there. Thank you, whoever you are. Let's go check that out. Chat. Luke. Hello, Luke. Bonjour. We we encourage you to interact and say hello there. It's always more fun when we get people interacting. If you have any questions, we have a separate questions tab that's different from the what's it called?
The chat.
The chat. Thank you, Serena. I appreciate it. The slow brain day this morning. And yeah, for the chat section, we you can upvote any other questions, or excuse me, for the question section, you can upvote any questions you like, and at the end we go through them in order of upvotes. Before introducing Serena, I'm just gonna do a land acknowledgement, and I'll also talk about the series as a whole. And yeah, then we'll introduce Serena here. So, my name is Sami. I'm the CEO of CertiCraft, and I live in Nelson, BC. And in Nelson, it's on the unceded territories of the Sinixt people, and through intermarriage, the Tanaha as well. And here, the history of the Indigenous people is especially dark. There used to be thousands of Sinixt people here a couple hundred years ago. Today, it's down to a handful, less than 10. And most of that is through slaughter that's taking place here. It's really, really shitty history that's heartbreaking. And I encourage all of you, if you don't know the history of the Indigenous people, the traditional Indigenous people in your territories that you live on, to learn about that, get a sense of what's happened there. There's attempts at reconciliation right now at various levels of society here in Canada, and the first step, in my opinion, is to legitimately understand what's taking place with the land that you're on. In shifting gears into CertiCraft again. So CertiCraft, the company that I'm the CEO of that hosts the CertiCraft, we are on a mission to help craft cannabis producers transition into and thrive in the regulated market. We do that primarily through a compliance platform today that makes the various regulatory requirements really straightforward and simple to navigate, generates all the reports and records for you. And then the CertiCraft is a podcast that, it's my brainchild, started about a year and a bit ago. There really wasn't any kind of space to have discussions on the state of the legal craft cannabis industry. And so we decided to create that and just to have open-ended discussions on what was going well, what wasn't going well, what could be changed to be improved. And after a year of that, it kind of became clear that the same conversations were happening. Government moves really slowly. There were some shifts starting to happen, but yeah, we wanted to kind of spice things up for this season 2 that we're in right now. And so we started focusing more on cool stories and just cool ideas people were working on that either were part of the legal craft cannabis industry or were very closely interrelated to it, and to kind of invite people that we respect in the industry to just talk about what they were doing that we wanted to highlight. And Serena, who you can see right there in her beautiful tie-dye sweatshirt right there, is a great representation of exactly that. Serena, maybe I'll let you say a thing or two about yourself. Maybe you can touch on Because You Can, and then introduce the MaryJane Manor.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'll take a few minutes as well, and I would like to acknowledge that I'm on the traditional Treaty 7 territory of the Blackfoot people, and we are the neighbors to Siksika Nation. So a little bit about Because You Can. I am a micro-processing facility owner, and actually we got our sales amendment on Wednesday. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, congrats.
Right? Yeah. Thank you, Health Canada, for allowing us to grow, package, and actually sell product. This is going to be a game changer. I started as a medical cannabis user. I suffered from anxiety and migraines my whole life. And as I got older, my migraines got worse and worse. And I started as a CBD patient almost 5 years ago. And CBD gave me back my life. I would not be able to function without it. I take it all day long. I don't take the traditional method. I buy my dried flower from my medical provider and I decarboxylate it, I grind it and put it in capsules, and I eat pill form of dried cannabis all day long.
And is it just flour that you use in that form, or do you ever use like leaves and things like that decarboxylated as well?
No, right now I'm just buying like I'll buy my 30 grams of flour.
Okay.
So yeah, I find that, well, I learned very early on that CBD is water soluble, THC is not. And so I wasn't reacting well to the carrier oils, the MCT and coconut oils. I find them very, very heavy. And I was feeling kind of the after effects of my liver having to process the extra oils. And so this is how I do it. And I love it. And so my passion for the plant drove me, forward, take some courses at Mount Royal University, get some education, do some business planning. And then my husband was gracious enough to let me use one of our cold storage buildings that I turned into, because you can, cultivation. And so we've been licensed for 2.5 years, and we have our first 3 SKUs in Alberta, and we're thrilled to have them there. We went over to a neighboring community in Strathmore and bought product that I grew, and it was such a wonderful experience to be able to finally have it in Alberta.
And go into an actual retail store, be like, oh,
yeah,
look, that's my thing.
Right, this is me. And then we have some SKUs that are going to hit BC as well. And so that's very exciting. It's a 32% product, and BC is extremely excited to have it on their shelves. And so yeah.
And wait, Stuart, I just have a quick question for you. Do you know why you were able to do that?
Do what?
To get all your SKUs out there into these different retail stores.
Why is that?
It's because you
can. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And there was some days in there, though. There was some days in there where the mantra was, I don't know if we can, but we have to figure it out. Yeah, no, we've fallen on our faces a lot on the cultivation processing side. And it's a learning curve. It's a steep learning curve to grow this wonderful plant. And anybody that grows it knows that it is not the easiest plant to grow.
And you're somebody who has been a farmer for long before you got into cannabis, correct? Yeah,
my husband and I farm outdoors, and so yeah, at one point we were farming 6,000 acres and running the facility as well. And so we are farmers at heart. I grew up on Vancouver Island, and I say to everybody, I really should be the epitome of a pothead. But I am terrified of everything. And I grew up in a very conservative home, and my mom and dad, they didn't drink. They didn't participate in cannabis. And I was the straight lace. I didn't break the rules. My sister, however, had lots of fun and has experienced life. And now it's come this full circle, and she looks at me and goes, I can't believe you're doing the grow side. And then you're going to open a dispensary. And now you've got the MaryJane Manor. Like, my kids' minds just blow up with the fact that, and we taught them, right? Prior to legalization, this was a no-go in our house. And
of note, because we've talked about this before, it's Serena's children that introduced Serena to cannabis.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. I smoked my first joint with my adult daughters and smoked too much. And for those of you that have smoked a little too much, you know that feeling's not great. And they saw it coming before I saw it coming. And they were like, Mom, you got to get on the floor. And I'm like, I'm having a good time. I'm fine. And it hit me, and they walked me through it, get a glass of orange juice, just relax, just try to breathe through it. And had I not had them with me, I've said to many people, I would not have touched a THC product again, because it scared me enough that I didn't like it. And I am one that when I have a negative experience, I avoid everything going forward. And this plant has taught me that we have to be patient with ourselves, and we have to be patient with this plant, and we have to just go really slow. I read a fabulous article the other day about how women's systems and men's systems are so different, and how we typically metabolize things so much faster than men sometimes. And so for women, it really is a matter of you go low and go slow and ease into it so that you don't have those negative experiences, because nobody wants that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you were a farmer for a while. You got into cannabis through both your children and then the CBD side for your own medical purposes. You chose to add a new farming activity of cannabis because you can. You've been working for a while on the processing side as well. You just got your license. I think it was earlier this week, was
Wednesday.
it?
Yeah,
So
Wednesday.
huge
Yeah.
congrats. That just came through a couple of days
Thank
ago.
you.
I know we've talked about that over the
Yeah.
months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now there's this MaryJane Manor thing. So in like 2 or 3 sentences, what is the MaryJane Manor? And of course, we're going to talk about that a lot more throughout the rest of the session. And
Okay.
B, how did it come to be? Why did you choose to create that MaryJane Manor?
So great questions. So MaryJane Manor is from my understanding the first private cannabis boutique hotel in Canada. And when I say private cannabis boutique, I mean that it is in itself 15 bedrooms, 17 bathrooms. It has a lounge, and it is a private booking only. And so it is not open to the public. We are not open to people driving through and just saying, okay, I just want to rent a room. Can you put me up for the night? And I did that because I want to age gate it, and I want to be able to have the whole facility being used for the purposes of a cannabis friendly experience. Oh, what is that?
What?
I've got a big buzz in my ear.
Oh well, it's been clicky for a while. It came back, but it was like enough to it was enough to understand you, so I didn't say anything.
Okay.
If you got a buzz in your ear though, that's weird. Hey, to our audience, are you guys hearing like clickiness from Serena as she talks, or is that just me on my end? Oh, am I buzzy?
Am I the one that's buzzy?
Okay. So Serena, maybe if you want to try to refresh one more time, and then maybe let's just because it worked when you came in, and then you got minimized for a while. So I wonder if that has to do with it. We had this issue earlier before we went on air, and then we solved it. But why don't you try to refresh one more time? And
will it kick me right out?
It will, but you'll get back in right away. I mean, you have no problem getting in here, so we'll just maybe I'll tell some jokes while we wait for Serena. Do you guys want some jokes? I want to hear some feedback in the chat. And also, am I clear, or is there a cannabis joke? I don't know if I have a cannabis joke.
There. How's that?
Is that I didn't even have time to tell a joke, Serena. I was going to tell a joke.
Well, don't let me stop you.
I'll tell a joke. Okay, beatbox won't work, Nick, because this mic it'll just clip. It'll sound weird. Like if I go, like I don't think that comes through very. It probably sounds weird. Anyway, or did it sound straightforward? Joke would be, why did the Scarecrow win an award? Specifically, why did it win an academic award?
I don't know. Why did it?
Because it was outstanding in its field.
Oh dear. Oh, that is quite a dad joke you got going on there.
Nick's a dad now, so I gotta take it to the next level.
There you go. Oh god.
For those of you that don't know, Nick, my co-founder, who is always a pretty integral part of these events here, he has a little daughter named Mabel that was born a month and a day ago.
Oh, and, wow. Wow, that's going fast.
And let me tell you, he is tired right now.
All new parents can adjust, yes.
So you were starting to tell us, Serena, about you decided deliberately to make the MaryJane Manor private, and I actually didn't know what that meant until you just explained it. I didn't even know that there were hotels that were like that, where you could just choose to let in who you wanted. I didn't know that was a thing. That's pretty cool to know that's a thing. And you were starting to kind of expand on your choice of making it private.
Yeah, so we decided to make it private just simply because then LPs or, I mean, anybody really, whether you're an LP or whether we've even got a brewery down the road that wants to rent it and have team building. And we've got a women's retreat. Kylie and Kelly Coulter are arranging the Back to the Garden women's retreat in July. And so we potentially have, 55 women coming for this late women's retreat. And so we really wanted to be able to use the space in a way that would allow for a group to have the whole thing. I didn't want it so that, let's say, Sami, you're going to stay and I'm going to stay and Nick's going to stay and Luke's going to stay, but one of us is not okay with cannabis consumption. And then we make it negative for everybody else. Just because you can say something is cannabis friendly doesn't mean that everybody that's going to just stop in is going to be okay with it. And so by doing it private, we can designate rooms as cannabis friendly, but because it is private and run more like an Airbnb where you rent the whole thing, it then becomes a private residence, the whole thing. It's just a really big house. You've got 15 bedrooms and 17 bathrooms. You've got 2 kitchen areas and a lounge, and you can consume wherever you are comfortable in whatever mode you want. And so that was the direction that we took, and it kind of spiraled. We bought it. It's a small little town. Ian always says if everybody's home, there's 41 people that live in Mossley. So, this is a very, very small little area in southern Alberta, and this hotel came up for sale, and we bought it and thought, okay, well, there's some solar projects coming. We could have contractors in it for the next 2 years, and it would return on investment would be very, very fast. And then, I go, well, would be really nice if we could make it cannabis friendly. And so did some research and talked to AGLC, and they didn't have an issue as long as the municipality was fine with it. And then it goes again, right? I leave work and I go home and I have a puff, and I'm the most creative after I've had a really long day, and I take some time to relax and am elevated. And I said, let's make this a private hotel and let's make this a cannabis boutique hotel. And so that's what we did. And we've renovated it from top to bottom, all brand new furniture. We've got educational posters in every room. We've got terpene themed rooms. And we have given guests the space to have some information if they want. They can bring in guest speakers. We've got a lot of people who are happy to come in and do some cooking and do some infused meals or help you make your own lotions and do some of those things. And so my goal for the space is really to be kind of an envelope for people gathering. I mean, conventions are finally happening again, and I'm so excited. I'm going to go to the Grow Up conference in Victoria in June. And as much as I love conferences, this will offer the industry a very intimate setting, right? It's just different. And it will allow us to be able to do some retreats and really take the time I feel that we need. And I say that, and I need to say it to myself with the loudest voice, to really take some time and check out of life. And we didn't put TVs in rooms because my feeling on that is if you have planned to use the space, I want you to pay attention to the people that you're with. And we can watch TV at home. We've all got our devices. If you need TV to fall asleep, we've got Wi-Fi. We have all those things that, some of those creature comforts of home. But I really want this space to be a self-reflective, peaceful space and allow people to use it the way that they want.
That's pretty great. And I'm curious, you mentioned your town, this town of 41 people that you have there. Like, what is your relationship with that township, and how do they feel about this hotel happening? Because I'm sure that's like not a thing that anybody would have conceived like 10 years ago happening in their town.
No, I don't even think they really conceived it.
One moment, the feedback thing is back. I'm just going to ask the audience, is it really loud and annoying, or can you hear Serena as she talks? And maybe can you talk for a bit, Serena, just to give our audience a chance to say something?
Is it my mic, or is it?
Oh, David says it's fine on his end. Okay, well, let's keep going then. And then we'll just ask you guys to say something if it's prohibiting the understanding of what we're saying.
Okay, yeah. So I think the community was a little bit surprised when Ian and I purchased it. I think that they assumed that we would renovate it and run it as a traditional, hotel. And and we didn't. And so we've had a little bit of feedback. Some people are frustrated that we are not running it as a hotel that people can just stop in and out of. But I think that people are respecting it for the most part. And they've been very respectful across the board. I mean, I think if you do any business plan in a small town, you don't do it for the people who live here. Unfortunately, you do it for everybody else, right? I say all the, people who live in Calgary don't typically stay the night in Calgary hotels because they live there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I mean, we hope to be able to bring, people out of the city, people across Canada to a place that is really kind of a destination place. And it will, hopefully it'll bring all the fun that we're hoping.
Great. So you mentioned that you really wanted it to be an educational space. Do you think that you'll be curating educational things yourself, or is it more like whoever wants to book this space, you just kind of hope that they go in an educational direction? Like, do you have a sense of like things that you want to curate yourselves at all, or do you not really want to get into that side of things?
Well, there's a 50-50 split. I mean, I'm one, I've got too much on the go. So I don't want to be the one that organizes, women's retreats or health retreats or couples retreats. I want to be able to provide the envelope. I've got a couple of girls that I'm working with that are looking at doing a few things. I every time I meet somebody and tour people through, I figure out that, oh my gosh, you're a yoga instructor. Let's plan a yoga retreat. I want to be able to put a pitch deck together to send to all of the cannabis practitioners across Canada and say, we have an opportunity to use this envelope to have patients come in. And then I would love to be able to see that, let's say we do an MS health retreat. Let's send that out to the industry and let's get some LPs sponsoring some of those things.
And I'm assuming you mean multiple sclerosis when you say MS.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, we've got avenues to be able to focus on a lot of really good health initiatives that we know, but I mean, I just scratched the surface. I mean, I know what cannabis has done for me, but I am not a professional, and I don't know that I will put myself in a place where I'm going to take on any kind of educational role. I'm happy to talk about my story, and I'm happy to listen to yours and see where we are the same and where we are different. But I think that having the ability to have a closed space that people can talk about it. We're looking at getting a research and development license for the Manor, and then we open up all kinds of things on the research development side. And then I want to be able to put a pitch deck together for the research and development on the psychedelics, because this is a closed environment and we could literally be doing weekends for the psychedelic side in a safe manner where, that would probably be the only way I would be comfortable doing a guided trip, is because I know my anxiety will ensure that I do not have a positive experience.
So are you imagining like a team of like researchers from some kind of academic environment that are setting up an experiment, a trial with patients, and they know we got 3 days in this space to really like slowly go through whatever we want to go through. We know that everybody can be taken care of. We can have a day to kind of settle in, a day to go on the psychedelic journey, a day to kind of integrate, contemplate, reflect. Is that kind of what you mean when you're talking about research and development in the psychedelic world?
Yes. Yeah.
That's super interesting. I feel like there's a lot of research teams that are probably really into that, because the spaces they have access to are a lot more clinical, and like it's a lot less like even in places where like they've painted murals and set up artwork and an environment that feels a lot safer and better for a psychedelic journey. It's still like a room off a hallway where everything else is clinical. So it's it can definitely put certain types of people in a very different headspace and not really like hit the kind of comfort levels that you can hit if you're spending 3 days in a space that's all about psychedelic experiences. And I say it that way because cannabis is a psychedelic, and a lot of people seem to forget that it's a very powerful psychedelic.
And that's what I'm hoping the space can offer, right? Exactly what you had explained is, you take the day one and you get everybody settled, and we have the opportunity to be able to cook in-house, provide food. We could do infused meals. You could do all of those things. Then you're not worried about people driving, which is the safest way of doing an infused meal. And then, yes, you have that opportunity to kind of set your intention and go with it, right? And then you have that ability to come back and reflect and be able to talk to that group of people that would be considered safe because they're your people, right? It's not me putting 50 people that you don't know in the space. It's you organizing it and you bringing your safe people in and being able to decide what that looks like. And the interest in it so far has been amazing. You know, I mean, people are looking forward to being able to use the space the way that I was really hoping. And it was really neat because we did kind of a soft opening on April 22nd, and we had over 60 people for the opening. And we went next door to the restaurant bar. My son-in-law's mother owns it, and so we have a very good relationship. And so anytime anybody's out, you know, she'd be happy to cater meals and bring in a band and do all of those things. And we had a DJ, and by 7:30 everybody was out of the bar and over in the lounge where they could talk. We you know, people were bringing their mason jars of weed down the hall to the lounge and doing the sniff test with everybody, and it was such a really cool experience. Gord from North 40 Cannabis was there, and his daughter, and you know, I mean, we had people who owned retail. It was people from across the community, and the conversation, like the organic conversation of, so you know, how long do you flush for? What kind of genetics do you like? Is this sativa? Is it an indica? Like, what parts of the industry are going good for you, and what are the pinch points? And it brought everybody under the same roof, literally under the same roof, and in a really relaxing, wonderful atmosphere. Like, it was really, really cool. I mean, I'll be honest with you, we set off the fire alarms, but it was not, it was, wait a second.
It wasn't cannabis.
It wasn't the cannabis. It was the smoke machine from the DJ. And Ian and I went back the next morning, and we had probably 45 people spend the night. And we weren't putting any rules on it. And you know, the next morning you couldn't smell weed in that whole facility. It was unbelievable because it doesn't.
You go ahead.
It doesn't leach in like cigarette smoke.
Do you guys have because you said you'd made renovations, did you like put in like an HVAC system or some kind of ventilation in place with the fear of that, or was it just
No, we didn't. I mean, we've since added air purifiers to the rooms so that people can use them. But like I said, I mean, there was a really nice little thick plume of smoke, and it didn't reek like weed the next day. And everybody that stayed was so respectful. We went back, and most people were already gone by 11 o'clock, and they stripped their beds and put all their dirty laundry in the bathtubs. And I said to Ian, you know, had this been a drinking crowd, we would have a huge mess to clean up.
Yeah, you'd have puke to deal with.
Yeah, right? And so that's where then, you know, being able to have this as an Airbnb, and it's like your house for 2-3 days. You want to rent it for a week, by all means. I'm not going to say no. But the level of respect, I find that as a cannabis consumer, I'm more aware of myself. When I'm drinking, I feel like I'm invincible and I can make some pretty stupid decisions. But I'm very much more aware when I'm using cannabis, and I feel like I am much more respectful of myself and of others around me. And it kind of was reflected in the group that we had there for sure.
And you know, there's something to be said about just the level of stigma that cannabis has. Like, this series wouldn't exist if there was no stigma against cannabis, but because there's all the stigma, the regulations are really burdensome, like way more tedious than they need to be. The policies that exist on many layers of government are really just, they don't make any sense. They don't actually match realities. And we would have no reason to have a series to talk about the bullshit that we're dealing with in our industry. And so I think as a result of that stigma, and people who are not only cannabis connoisseurs, but people who are like really involved in the cannabis production industry, everybody's like just so aware of that. And so people like go the extra mile to be super respectful, so that they can kind of like fight that stigma without actually like taking deliberate actions to address the stigma. So I feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
part of the puzzle as well. Just like, and it might be a subconscious thing. I don't necessarily think it's a conscious thing, but just like everybody who's in the industry is aware of like the fine
Mm-hmm.
line we're walking on, where like it's legal technically, but every single layer of government and every single service provider that's not part of this industry kind of has this attitude of, oh yeah, what are you criminals
Mm-hmm.
gonna do, or ex criminals, or like criminal at the slightest chance you get. That's kind of the
Yeah.
attitude that we get from so many places. And so and yeah, and just people who work in the industry that are like community oriented are just awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna get a lot of like great humans as well.
Yeah, exactly. I found that very much so across the board. We are a wonderful group of people and a very vast group of people, right? I mean, we are very like-minded individuals, and we're very aware of the negative side of it. And I think that we're even more conscious about how we portray ourselves, and kind of that cannabis theme that we bring to everything, because it's in us, right? I mean, and yeah, so it's been fun. It's been really fun, and I'm looking forward to just seeing it take off, and yeah, the groups that can come in. You can bring in your swag. You can gift product to the people who are staying there,
Yeah.
because you're allowed to have cannabis on your person. And so, yeah, I mean, it just gives you the ability to be able to set the tone, and set the direction. If you want to bring in yoga instructors, I'll help you facilitate those things. But
Yeah.
I didn't want to have it where we had full-time caretakers looking after a hotel to change beds once a day, or one
Yeah.
bed a week, right? That
Yeah.
it made no sense on a business side. And so this seems to be the most sense for the business at this point. And I think the excitement in the industry, even if you're not in the cannabis industry. I mean, we have a brewery in Strathmore that is looking at renting it. And I said to them, I said, would you want me to take my cannabis education and my terpene information out of the rooms? And they were like, no, we love this. It adds to the experience. And I said, well, that's good, because I didn't want to compromise what I've built,
Yeah.
right? So that it could accommodate, an alcohol crowd. And they have consumers, and they have, well, team members, employees that don't drink, but they consume cannabis. And so, yeah, if that's what they want to do,
And
that's fine.
and I think like any company, no matter what industry they're in, if they're choosing to rent a cannabis boutique hotel and they're making that intentional choice, then they're cool with cannabis. Like I can't imagine a single company that would choose to rent the MaryJane Manor saying, "Oh, we want the like terpene information taken off, or we want whatever
Yeah.
taken off." It's like they're coming there because they're a fan of what you are doing. It's like they're
Yeah.
going out of their way to come to your
Yes.
MaryJane Manor that you've created. So I hope that you never compromise on that, and don't even
Yeah.
ask people in the future if you want to
Yeah.
take stuff down, because it's like what that's they're there because of the cannabis
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
this vibe that you're cultivating here, and they're
Yeah.
into it and they want to support that vision.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, we started off where we thought, okay, well, maybe we will auction off, or ask licensed producers to sponsor different terpene rooms, and then they would legally be able to advertise their products, and themselves in these rooms, because it is no different than a casino. It's age gated. It's not open to the public. And so they would legally be allowed to do that. And we did the opening, and I had a lot of people come to me and say, do you really want different LPs advertising on your walls, or do you want the MaryJane Manor to be the MaryJane Manor, and invite people to come in and use it? I have no problem if you want to fill it with swag, and do all of those things, but then it's still my envelope that is
Yeah.
kind of covering over that. And so it's been yeah, I've learned a lot. I mean, I started off on one direction, and the road always turns, and being a business person means you pivot where you need to. And for right now, this
Mhm.
is the direction that we're going to go. And yeah, so it's been fun.
One thing I'm curious about is the regulations around consuming and smoking indoors. Like what kind of regulations exist around that in Alberta, and how does that interplay with your ability to have essentially like a big giant consumption lounge across this entire hotel, and to not bump up against any kind of regulations of that sort. Can you kind of like talk a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as a producer, I know that Health Canada's number one rule is protecting the youth. I've got, our youngest has just turned 18. We have grandchildren. I certainly don't want youth exposed to cannabis before their time. And so we have chosen to age gate it. So that's check number one. Because it's an existing hotel, we don't have to apply for any kind of licensing for approval for any kind of building. When I talked to AGLC about it, because under Alberta Health Services, we could designate rooms in this hotel to be cigarette smoke friendly. We've chosen not to do that. So then I asked the question, okay, can we designate cannabis friendly rooms? Because there is hotels in the cities that have designated certain rooms. A lot of them say they're cannabis friendly, but you need to consume outdoors, which is the way they've chosen to set it up. And so AGLC advised me that as soon as you, Sami, pay me, MaryJane Manor, to use your room, it becomes your private residence. And so then it falls on the municipal level. And so if the municipality does not have a problem with consumption in your private residence, then you're fine.
And is that rule where as soon as I pay you for this room, it becomes my private residence? Is that true of any hotel period, or is that something unique and specific to how you set up MaryJane Manor?
That is across the board. So as soon as you pay any hotel, that becomes your private residence.
It's
And
just that
so
certain hotels have a policy of you
that's
cannot smoke
correct.
inside here, and so that even though it's my private residence, I have to abide by the policies because I'm renting from this landlord, and they've made it clear
Yes.
what they're okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So because I've made it private, it means that the whole space is then cannabis friendly, not just the room that you may be staying in, or not just the room that Nick might stay in, right? It
Yeah.
becomes a great big house basically. And so it will allow, and AGLC, I mean, it blew my mind, because even, for instance, the city of Calgary, you are legally allowed to consume in a residence that you own, not that you rent. And that is the only time you are legally allowed to consume. And so there hasn't been anybody arrested for smoking in their own backyard, but legally, the way the land use bylaw is set up in the cities is that it doesn't allow it, which is craziness, because you're allowed to smoke cigarettes everywhere. And so as long as the municipality, Vulcan County, doesn't have anything in their bylaws about consumption, indoors or outdoors. And so there's nothing in the land use bylaw, and we will respect all levels of regulation. However, we don't fall under regulation because, number one, we're not selling cannabis, and we're not promoting cannabis use. We are allowing it. We're not cross promoting, you must buy because you can product to come and stay at the MaryJane Manor. And we're not promoting MaryJane Manor, please smoke product. And so we're being very, very mindful of making sure that there's no gray area. And we are putting a because you can dispensary in the front of the hotel. There was a small cafe, and so we are making it the because you can dispensary. And so guests who come out of the city will have access to legal product. We'll be the only store in 40 kilometers. And so that will also be a benefit, right? I mean, if you're flying in, you're certainly, by all means, stop at whatever dispensary you need to. But if you need product, there will be some product available there. And yeah, so I'm really hoping that we can tie in the health and wellness side, right? There is some really cool infused bath bombs. And I think, I mean, in my vision, right, I see a group of 50 women. I mean, clearly there's only 15 bathtubs, but we could go over or bring our own infused bath bomb and enjoy a really nice soak in the tub, right? And so it gives us some opportunities to be able to try some topicals. If you haven't ever tried a topical, if we had somebody in that made that topical and taught you how to use it, or taught you how it was made and why they made it, and then you had option of being able to purchase it, I think it just gives a level to the industry that is not there right now. The education side is sorely lacking, and unfortunately our hands are tied on that side of it. And so we have to be creative on ways that we can not promote cannabis use, but explain that the education on the health and wellness side without kind of stepping on anybody's toes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So if I can summarize kind of what I've understood of the various types of events and retreats that you see happening, they really fell into like 3 buckets for me.
Mm-hmm.
One is, an organization coming together, having a retreat for their organization.
Yeah.
A second would be like educational things, like this thing that Kelly Coulter and Kylie are doing. That's got some kind of purpose or to support the community some kind of way. And I actually would love for you to kind of share a bit more about that specific event in a bit.
Okay.
And then the third is you have research taking place once you have R&D in there. We talked about that earlier with the psychedelic side of things. Is there anything else that you see happening there, or does that about cover kind of what the activities that you're seeing taking place at this MaryJane Manor?
No, you've summarized it really well. And I think that those 3 buckets are very accurate. I think it gives the space an opportunity to kind of have a life of its own. And I think that there is a huge need for being able to have licensed producers or, you know, industry supports too, right? I mean, we've got nutrient companies and we've got lighting companies and we've got all of these industry supports that really need to be able to have a space to bring everybody together as well, right? We're all working towards the same things. And so it's nice to be able to do that. And then, yes, then we do retreat style. And so this retreat, Back to the Garden, that Kylie Boudreau from Parkland Flower and Kelly Coulter are organizing is really focused on women and bringing women in the industry together. And let's just talk, right? We're trying to get a yoga teacher in to teach yoga in the mornings, and they want women to send in recipes, and they'll buy the groceries ahead of time so that we can do some meal prep in-house. And it will just allow people to enjoy the indoor spaces and the outdoor spaces that we've set up for a lot of really good networking and just women supporting women. And I'd love to see, couples retreats and guys retreats, right? We've got golfing close and we've got paintball and we've got all these things that if we take the time to just set it, right? We take the time to just say, we're going to do this once a year and we're going to do it with as many guys as we can. We've got rooms set up. We've got king beds. We've got queens with day beds. We've got 2 double beds and we've got bunk bed rooms. And we had the boys down from Cabana and Calgary, and there was 8 of them in bunk beds. And they thought it was like going back to camp. Like it's fun. And those rooms fill up fastest because it's not something you can get at any other hotel. And those are the really cool experiences that I've gotten the best reaction to. And I mean, it's hard to know what to do, right? I stepped out on a limb and bought bunk beds, and they've actually got the trundle. So a bunk bed sleeps 3. And it's just been able to put a fun spin on a non-traditional hotel.
And so when a group, like, you said there was this Cabana group, there was 8 people. When there's a group of 8 people wanting to rent the space, do they get the whole hotel, or could you have like 2 groups of 8 with different parts of the hotel at the same time? Like, do you have kind of a vision of what you're seeing there?
Right now, I would leave it so that you rent the whole space,
Okay.
and so you need to plan on being able to sleep 15 to 55 people is what it will sleep, and so what budget will allow you is up to you. And I mean, you could do it as a ticketed event, or you could do it as we're renting it. You guys are going to help with food, or you're going to cover your own food and travel expenses and so forth. I just don't want to get to a place where we have a small group with one agenda, right? We are all going to come with different agendas, and then it butts heads with somebody else. And so if you want those, 2 different groups, then you guys figure out which 2 groups and just use it at the same time. Yeah.
Serena, I do have a feeling that as I know you're going to get lots of producers and retailers and people in the cannabis industry that are going to be very interested in this space as a retreat for their staff. But I think you're going to get a lot of interest from other places too. Like already you're getting breweries, all the alcohol producers, I think will have a certain interest in what you're doing. I think video game studios, design firms, like there's just so many different agencies and organizations out there where the people are like really cannabis friendly. And It's I just think I think you might be surprised at the level of interest that you'll get as kind of word gets around. Because right now people are aware of the MaryJane Manor, but it's really limited to the cannabis sector. And as
Yeah.
people tell their friends about like, oh, I had this great experience in Southern Alberta, I'm like, my company Canna Cabana took me to this thing and it was so cool. And they're talking to somebody who happens to be, I don't know, a video game designer at like a little firm with like 20 people, and half of them are potheads and the other half like
Hmm.
nothing against cannabis and they like it from time to time. Like
Yeah.
I think there's gonna be this kind of organic spread of just a lot of interest from a lot of different sectors. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. Like we've got some jujitsu groups that are interested, and I mean they pay good
Really?
money and go all the way over to Cuba,
Yeah.
and they're like, yeah, I mean as long as we've got a space outside that we could do all of our exercises and do all of our things, we'd fill it, right? And so you're right. I mean it gives no matter what background you're coming from, and I think the cannabis boutique side of it makes it kind of a destination and makes it a little bit more interesting. And that's
Yeah.
the nice part about, we certainly aren't pushing cannabis use. We are okay with it, but then it lets you decide what your comfort level is. And if you decide you don't want to, there's no judgment on that either, right? I don't want
Yeah.
that side of it to ever come in where you must be a cannabis user to be able to enter. I don't want that either, right? I want it to be a very, very safe place for everybody.
And I think one nice thing is gonna be that, when you have like a jujitsu group like that, they bring in 55 people for this retreat there. It just kind of normalizes cannabis, and I think it does a lot to fight the stigma, because now you have like, let's say like of the 55 people, you have 10 people that are like real major stoners. You have another 10 that maybe like use cannabis like 2-3 times a week, another 10 who use it like once every week or two, and everybody else like doesn't really use it, maybe sometimes when they go out with a friend they really trust. And it just makes it
Hmm.
so that those first 30 people can really openly use the stuff, like not worry about stigma or judgment, because you're there at a cannabis boutique. Maybe the other people, some of them maybe have harbored some stigma, and now they're like learning about it. And in the rooms you have all this educational material, and it just changed, and just getting to witness people be normal functioning adults who are
Hmm.
respectful and
Hmm.
fine, and they don't turn into like the devil
Yeah.
reincarnated.
Yeah.
I think it'll
Yeah.
do a lot to fight stigma and to just like
Yeah.
create for, yeah, I think it could be a powerful play. I'd love to see like, I don't know, a retreat of a group of MLAs or something.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah, right.
or
And that's
municipalities and
yep, yep. And that's something. I mean, Ian was an MLA for 3.5 years for the Alberta government, and he has a lot of friends still involved in upper government and in politics. And yeah, I mean, it's just this whole draw of wow, this isn't being done anywhere. We got to
yeah,
see this, right?
yeah,
And yeah, I mean, I say this to almost everybody too. I mean, if you're coming through, hit me up, because if it's not full, I don't mind putting you up, by yourself or a couple of people on the off chance that it might be empty, because I want people to still experience it and take
yeah,
it back to what they want to, plan a group or plan an event. And so yeah, there's so many ways, right? I mean, it's not a matter of must be cannabis. And then I think it gives opportunity for people like me who are very fearful to be able to try something in a group setting that I would consider safe. And then, I mean, look at the legal side too. We've got all the 2.0 products, right? But people are still afraid of trying some of the edibles because they had a bad experience when they were, a teenager, or a gray market product that was way too strong or what have you, right? And so
yeah,
I think it just gives opportunity to just continue just conversation. Let's just talk. And it's not just about cannabis. It's just a matter of across the board. Let's just sit down long enough to actually talk to each other and listen to each other and see what happens.
awesome. I have one last question to ask you, but before I do, I'll just mention to our audience we're 5 minutes past discussion time here, so we'll be wrapping up pretty soon here. So if you have any questions, you got like a couple minutes here to ask them. Otherwise, we won't do a Q&A section. Um, the oh, I forgot the question that I had. Oh, dang it!
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oh no, Serena! Serena! I failed you all, listeners out there. Oh, it can't be important if I've forgotten it. I was excited about it. I remember the question. So if somebody's listening to this either here right now or on YouTube later, and if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the CertiCraft channel. Thank you very much. If somebody wanted to like actually book the MaryJane Manor, how do they go about doing that?
So you go to www.maryjanemanor.ca. Our website is up and live. We've got some social media started, and the more events that we get up, the more social media and the more digital media we can get, the better. And yeah, we're still doing a little bit right now. We've booked a couple of weeks, so it's not available. We're changing all the windows and painting the outside, and so it's going to look very different again. And so we're excited to get it up and rolling. 1st of July is, completely wide open. And so, yeah, by all means, check us out on the web and social media, and send me some direct messages and some emails, and we'll get the conversation started.
And can you maybe just like lift up your shirt a little so we can see the full MaryJane Manor there? Oh yeah, I wish.
I said to Sami earlier, I have a black acid wash one as well, and he's so young, bless his heart, that he doesn't know what acid wash is. So if there's other
Excuse me, it's not the youth. It's the I grew up in the Middle East, and we have different terms.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You might not realize this about us, but English is actually my third language.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Well, I go back to my kids, and my kids didn't know what acid wash was. They thought I had 3 heads when I talked about acid wash. So, yeah, no.
I'd heard the term. Fun. I'd heard the term a bunch before, and I'd seen acid wash a bunch before, but I didn't know that they
were the same. Yeah,
I knew it was about genes, and I thought it was kind of because some genes they fade out slowly as if it's been bleached in acid or something, and that's what I thought it was. But as we were talking earlier, I realized it was more the marbled effect. Didn't realize
that. No. So we'll have some fun with swag, and I'd love to eventually. I'd love to get MaryJane pajamas and slippers, and I think it would be so fun to have 50 people running around in tie-dye hoodie and pants. There's nothing like having everybody dressed the same to make you feel like you're a great big family, and and then nobody knows who anybody is. I think doing some ones that would glow in the dark too, wouldn't that be fun? And you could go back to doing tag outside in the go stop in the dark at the prairie. Like, it's endless, right? I mean, we're right next door.
It'd be cool to do masquerade.
Yeah. Like, I've got a group that wants to do a murder mystery weekend. And so they'd come in and they would do the whole murder mystery in the hotel. And I think, it's just going to be fun.
Cool. Awesome, Serena. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Any final thoughts you want to share before we announce the next event in series?
No, I just want to thank you guys for having me. You are always a pleasure. I am always talking about CertiCraft, and I think I have another micro that might be switching over. I think you're working with them. And so, everybody that I talk to, I'm like, I have never regretted switching over. It takes a little time, but you guys are the best to help facilitate that. And you do really make life much, much easier. And I appreciate you're always excited about the businesses that I've got going on, and all of the support is always appreciated, because record keeping is a huge stress in this industry. And so having a good support is fabulous.
Thanks, Serena. I appreciate you saying something. Cool. Well, on that lovely note that has me feeling real good inside, I will announce the next State of Craft. So the next State of Craft is not going to be quite what we've been doing with season 2 so far, which is highlighting cool stories. Instead, we're going to be highlighting a not so cool story, and having discussions on how we can address that not so cool story. And the not so cool story is the BC LDB, and how they just don't care at all. They literally don't give a fuck is the vibe that they emanate about supporting small farmers with the direct delivery program. The BC LDB was, or let me backtrack a bit. the BC Cannabis Secretariat's office did a lot of work to kind of figure out what are the problems that are causing small scale farmers in BC not to transition and not to succeed if they have transitioned. And they landed on, okay, there's two programs we can create that'll make a big difference for BC farmers. FarmGate, which allows you to then have the ability to actually sell product on your farms, and direct delivery, which would allow independent small scale cannabis producers to sell directly to small retailers, or I guess big retailers too, and circumvent the current supply chain that was really problematic. The LCRB was handed the FarmGate file, and they've been great. They've been engaging the industry. They've been really trying to make a difference, talking to small scale producers. The BCLDB was handed the direct delivery file, and they have not done that at all. They've been patting themselves on the back and just making a policy based off their own assumptions with an attitude of we know better than you, even though the reason that this was even a policy that was given to them as a thing they needed to do is because they did a bad job with the first version. So it's kind of odd that they would do such a bad job that the BC Cannabis Secretariat's office would say, hey, we need to create a different program. And then their response is, great, we're not going to listen again. So myself and literally every single other person I've talked to involved in legal craft cannabis in BC, including every single advocacy organization, is rightfully pissed off at the BCLDP, rightfully very concerned about this opportunity being completely squandered away, and opportunity being an opportunity to create an actual supply chain that allows BC farmers to thrive and allows retailers to thrive too. There's been a lot of bullshit everybody's had to deal with, and not gonna play the blame game here because the BCLDB, in fairness to them, they didn't have much time to put together a program, and they used a lot of what they know with alcohol to apply to the cannabis industry in the short amount of time they have. So can't blame them for what they've done so far, but I very much will blame them for not meaningfully engaging the industry and having a attitude towards people here right now, which is the attitude that they do emanate every single time they engage with the industry. Their engagements with the industries are lectures where they tell people what they're going to do and that they're not going to listen. That's been their MO.
That's too bad.
And so what the next CertiCraft is we're going to have 3 different guests who've done a lot of work on policy advocacy, getting governments to actually address real needs in industry, both in cannabis and outside of cannabis. Each of the guests have very different perspectives, very different backgrounds. We have Jacqueline from Acres, who's done a lot of policy advocacy for the retailer side in BC. She's had a lot of experience trying to work with the BCLDB. And I won't speak for her, but my assumption and my guess is that she is fed up with them. But I will not say that's not something coming from her. That's just my guess because I've been through a lot of the same conversations that she has, and and I can't imagine anybody who's been through those conversations being stoked on how the BCLB is treating the industry. We have Kelly Coulter, who is actually the person who's putting together the women's retreat at the MaryJane Manor. She has a very rich history in Ottawa. She's the person who actually convinced Justin Trudeau to focus on legalizing cannabis and make that a big part of his platform. And for Prime Minister, there's an article you can look up in the Toronto Star called "Meet the Woman." If you want to Google, Nick, if you want to just Google that real quick, "Meet the Woman," Kelly Coulter, and post that link in the chat. So she's done a lot of work there, and she has been in Victoria for the past few years, and she's done a lot of work, political advocacy work. In the local provincial sector for a while, and she's also quite involved with the BC, with the Craft Cannabis Association of BC. And so kind of her background is more on how to influence our representatives, our elected officials. And then the third person is somebody called Bruce Acton. He's actually an investor in CertiCraft, and he does not have a background in cannabis, but he's retired now, but he has been heavily involved in industry throughout his illustrious career, and he's done a lot of work with policy advocacy at federal, provincial, and local levels throughout. And the angle that he's going to be bringing to the table is fee setting, because it's very, very arguable and very clear that the way BCLDB is approaching the fee setting is actually illegal and breaks kind of the stipulations of the Cannabis Act. And there's work that can be done to force their hand um, to have fee setting structures that actually make sense. You'll notice that the BCLDB is very careful about never calling the 15% a tax or anything that like can be that meets the literal labels of they call it a proprietary fee, and they're very careful about that because what they're doing is a bunch of bullshit that's pretty much illegal, and there's actions that can be taken about that. And so
Wow.
the purpose of this session is to brainstorm three people who have a very good sense of how to influence government, to brainstorm, have a discussion, and come up with an action plan that people in the industry can take to force the BC LDB to actually do a good job. And that's essentially that's the goal. We just want the LDB to take this file seriously and do a good job. Engage the industry, make it so it actually helps small farmers. That's the purpose. That's why the Cannabis Secretariat's office created this initiative, and they're completely missing the point right now. The BCLDB is also interesting because it's a private for-profit corporation that is also has a monopoly and is has mandates from the government. So they have this kind of dual purpose where, on the one hand, it's private profitability focused, and on the other hand, uh, they get directives from the Ministry of Finance here in BC. And so there's a very clear conflict of interest there. Like they seem to be focusing on the things that help them be more profitable at the expense of the things that helps the industry thrive.
Oh.
So there's a lot of question marks there about kind of how they're prioritizing the things, and it's definitely does not seem to have the interest of the cannabis sector in BC in mind. And we'll be launching a campaign after that to try to get as many people across BC in this sector to take the actions that we come up with collaboratively, to have a unified voice, to try to force the BC LDB's hands to just do a good job. And that I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that's too much to ask for. The
No.
industry is reeling right now. Companies are shutting down their doors. Independent farmers in BC are struggling. Independent retailers in BC are struggling, and the
Mm-hmm.
BCLDB doesn't seem to care. And
Yeah.
they have a file in their hands that allows them to create policy that can transform this industry, allow the sector to thrive, allow thousands of people sitting on the fence to choose to transition, and allow the BCLDB to become way more profitable because there's way more volume going through.
Mm-hmm.
But they seem to be a lot more short-sighted and selfish, is my perception of this. I tried very hard to engage with them meaningfully last year. They basically shut down any attempt at that. So I've shifted to an attitude of public shaming. I'm happy to be somebody they don't like in the public sphere, and that's my role now, just to publicly shame them because they're doing a shit job. And it's unfortunate because they have lots of people within the organization that interact um, with small scale producers, the actual people on the floor who really care, really do a good job, really understand what's needed. It's just the higher ups, people who make the
Mm-hmm.
decisions.
The
They're
policymakers.
they're not listening to the people, or
Yeah.
they don't. I don't know if they try to engage and don't listen, or they just don't engage at all. I don't really know how the bureaucracy works there. But the people at the top who are out of touch, it seems like they're just numbers focused. It's about like, it's like if businesses shuts down, it's not about this family is screwed now. They've got a second mortgage to make this happen, and now they're out of luck and they're going to be struggling for the next 20 years. That doesn't seem to cross their mind. It's more like,
Mm.
oh, 5 businesses shut down, and they don't kind of realize what that actually means, and that they have the ability to make it so that not only does nobody shut down, but a whole bunch more people can thrive. Anyway, I've been
Yeah.
ranting for a while. I'll stop there. As you guys can probably tell, I'm passionate about this. I want to see the craft sector thrive. And, I live in Nelson, BC. This is a province that I've called home for the past 10 or 11 years. And I want to see the sector thrive here. And I am not going to let an out of touch organization that seems to be very selfish and not really care, let that cause the demise of the local industry. Because if this industry goes just totally corporate with no big no small scale farmers, craft farmers actually being heavily involved in the sector, which seems to be what the policies they're floating out there is. That's gonna where it's gonna take us to. That's a really sad reality, and I don't really want to be involved in this industry if that's the case. That's not like
Yeah.
an industry I want to support.
Fair.
And I'll stop there. Thank you for letting me rant, everybody. What do you have any thoughts, Serena, having heard this 15-20 minute rant that I just went on here?
It's just sad, right? I mean, there's so many flaws across the nation, and we just got to get policymakers to actually sit down and listen to us as well, right? It's
Yeah.
about collaborating and getting ideas that work for everybody. So yeah, I will be sure to tune in for that. I mean, I'm not a BC producer, but I support all of you, and I know you just said you didn't want to be part of this industry but we need you. So you just got to figure out how you can help, and and we all have to start speaking as a big voice, right? I mean, I've said that lots too. I don't want to be competition. I mean, I have to sell my product, and we all have to sell our product, but we're all looking for the same things, and our voices are much louder if we're together. And so I hope that a lot of good comes out of this one.
Yeah, and the gray and black markets historically have supported tens of thousands of producers. Like the estimates are about 50,000 across Canada, different producers who've worked in the gray and black markets. In California, similar numbers. Like the California budget in 2018, I think it was, that the government of California did. They estimated between 50 to 80,000 different craft cannabis producers in the underground communities there. And California and Canada have always been compared as very similar sizes as far as the market goes in cannabis. So 50,000 arguably on the lower end. That surprises a lot of people when they hear that. And if the black and gray sectors could support that, guess what? The legal sector can support 2,000, 4,000, 10,000. Like there is a support available for that. It's just a matter of prioritizing wanting independent farmers, small scale businesses to be able to thrive. The infrastructure is there for that because all these people can transition. These people want to transition. They fought for decades to legalize cannabis so that they can transition. And now, as a result of policies, they haven't been able to. And that's fine. It makes sense. This is new for the government. Nobody expects everybody to get it right from the start. But I think it is reasonable to expect that when we see things not working, that we'll address them.
Absolutely.
And BC, for the most part, has been great about that. The LCBRB has been fantastic in how they're approaching Farmgate. It's not moving as fast as I'd like. Like I'd love to see, like, for example, farmers markets be a thing that can happen. And I get that, like, there's a lot of like public perception and stigma that's pushing back on the other side, so government can't move that fast, but they are engaging the industry. The BC Cannabis Secretariat's office with their consumption lounge file, they're great. They're talking. They want to engage. They want to learn. And it's just such a shame that the single policy that has the biggest chance to make the biggest difference and allow, at least in BC, the sector to go from reeling to thriving, the people who are in charge of that just don't have that level of care. And I don't know if it's literally just a conflict of interest thing. Maybe that's all there is to it. Is that they're just focused on themselves instead of on other people, and that's kind of it. Kind of sucks that you have a private corporation that also has mandate from a government. With a monopoly. Like there's monopolies are bad. I mean, you have the same issue in BC with ICBC, with like the public transit system in Vancouver. Like so much bullshit with the public transit system in Vancouver because it's a like private corporation that has a monopoly on this service, and the executives there are happy to give themselves $300,000 bonuses while bus drivers are struggling and just needs aren't being met. BC Ferries, same thing. That's one thing I never quite understood about BC, about how there's all these. I don't know if it's just corruption from like the 70s or 80s or whenever these like things were established, where like governments had friends who had these businesses and they were like, hey, we're going to give you a monopoly. I don't know how this came to be. I don't know the history at all, but the reality today is that like these monopolies in BC that are like government handed are really fucked up. And the BC LDB unfortunately is one of them, and that affects us in the cannabis sector here. Anyway,
it's crazy.
That's enough of that. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure. Happy Friday, everybody.
Yeah, and on that note, happy Friday. Woo!
Happy
Better note.
Friday. Yeah. Can only get better from here, right?
Yeah. So yeah, if you're gonna take anything away, 2 weeks from now is gonna be spicy. once we have the promo material up and running for that, we'll be pushing pretty. We want to make a big splash for this. We hope that a lot of government officials show up across BC. Maybe we'll try to get some MLAs to tune in, because a lot of people might just not realize, like, the scale of the problem that exists in the supply chain in BC, across Canada as a whole, but BC being one of them. B, the potential that exists with this program to solve literally everything that's wrong with this first thing, and C, the fact that the government organization involved that's in charge of doing that isn't trying. All right, I'm repeating myself. We're over. We're done. You're done. Thanks for your time, Serena. It's a pleasure having you as a guest.
All right.
Good luck with the MaryJane Manor, and thank you to all of you who were here today and stuck around for this entire time. I appreciate you listening to me rant as well. And till next time.
Until next time.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
And event.